Most advice that you hear is utterly useless, even if it sounds smart and it sounds like someone is trying to help. And you know what's fucked up? Most people are just trying to help and trying to give advice. The problem is, most people are given advice from a mirror as to what has worked for them, not looking at it from your perspective, what might work for you. And everyone's starting line is completely different. I think that most people online or that are just trying to help other people confuse universal truth. Most people confuse universal truths with antidotes. The thing is, advice is more like a medicine or a surgery. Only works if the problem is diagnosed correctly. Let me give you an example. What should a broke 19-year-old do? Should they save or invest? How about a 40-year-old with 2 kids? Should they quit their job and start a business? The thing is, your starting line gives you massive path dependency upon what's going to work. And more importantly, most things that work for you don't work for other people. There's a million other things that go into what that actually is. For me in my business, what moves the needle the most are actually small little tactics, and it's not massive things. Something that has really drastically changed my business. There's been a few key things. One was when I was just doing organic growth for a lot of large businesses. The first thing that I learned, I went to a conference and I learned one single thing from this conference. The next week, I ended up making $25,000. You would think that I learned some magical fucking tip and trick. Not really. Already had the distribution. All I learned was one simple funnel, was it called a webinar funnel. We took those views, got them into a webinar, and we sold a ridiculous amount of money by learning one simple small tactic. No one was giving me the advice to do that. I just heard that it worked for someone else, and I said, well, in my situation, this seemed it might fucking apply. And it did. How about for working out? Everyone's body types are different in dieting. I've heard fucking every single diet on the internet. Someone on Instagram will say carnivore is the best. Someone will say keto is the best. Someone will say vegetarian is the best. And every single one of those people can actually be right at the exact same time. Even though I think the vegans are fucking insane and I would never, ever want to not eat meat. Those people are healthy and they're doing what works best for them. Same thing in business. All of my clients are running incredibly large businesses. A lot of my friends are doing multiple 9 figures per year in their businesses. I know for a fact that their advice that they've given me in some portion of my business would not work. Contextually, it is completely different. That does not mean it didn't work for them. A lot of these people, it worked 100% perfectly for them, for their business, for their unique situation, for the time frame from which they were doing this. It's not a universal truth that always works. I would say you really have to see the real thing is not just figuring out what their advice is, but trying to figure out why did that advice work for them. Because what I've realized as I continue to grow a business and I have to make a stupid video every single day. I've just been doing this for years on end, documenting the business growth. I remember making my first video. I don't even know if I was making $10,000 a month at the time. That would have been 3 years ago. When I first started making videos, actually, I think I was only making a few $1,000s per month. Never sold anything to an audience, not my business. I just enjoy documenting the journey. I could sum all of that up into a few phrases, which would really just be ask yourself the question. If I think about something hard enough and I really can try and just compartmentalize what is the right answer, for me, I can just get to the conclusion. If I just spend an entire morning just blocking off my calendar, if I'm struggling with something, I will have millions, or not millions literally, but figuratively speaking, I will come up with ideas that will solve that problem and then give me solutions to even bigger problems. Most people just are so clouded, myself included, by your phone, by distractions, that you never have time to think through these problems. Therefore, you want someone else to give you a simple answer. Most problems are not simple. They are very complex. I've made it 100% habit that I've never once given any advice on this channel, and I just talk about what I do because what I do works for me, most likely will not work for other people. The way I got started in business was utterly desperate because I was reaching out to literally dozens and dozens of people per week looking to work for them for free, any way, shape, or form, mainly in macroeconomic space and business. I got nowhere, so I got this guy's logo tattooed on my leg. Got on a plane for the first time in my life and flew across the country and went to go meet the guy, harass him to work for him pretty much. And now I'm here in Medellin, Colombia. I see him a few times per week. That same guy that I've started working for and now have since grown a business around it that is going unbelievably well. I understand that would be terrible advice. That would be the worst advice in the entire world if I told someone else to do that, because there's a high probability that won't work out for you. I don't know why people are so obsessed with telling other people what to do, or why so many people are so desperate to get advice. Honestly, you probably know the answer. If you don't, you can find it out on your own pretty quickly for most of the problems that you have. And a lot of it is just things take a lot of effort and they take a lot of time. There's one commonality between every single one of my clients, every single one of my friends that have large businesses. All of them are over 50 years old and they've been in business for decades at end. It just takes decades to build a very large business. And so if I just come up with the approach, well, okay, every single one of these people, they will give a million versions of different advice, but they all have some common traits, which is stick to one thing for decades on end. That compounds severely. When you go from year 20 to 21, sometimes your revenue for your business can go from 150 million to 175 million, which is an extra $25 million in revenue, millions of dollars in take-home income for the entrepreneur. But the hard part was doing 20 years of business to then have the 21st. Or if you're looking to sell for a multitude of billions of dollars, sometimes it just takes 25 years to grow a business that can then sell for that amount of time. And of course, like anyone, I want to accomplish my 50-year goals in 5 years. And I'm going to work exceptionally hard to do that, because having the advantage of your youth is you have time on your side. You can work infinitely harder than older people. You are willing to make sacrifices that older people are not. When you have a small business, you have a huge advantage over large businesses that almost nobody really seems to get. When you have a small, lean team, you can make decisions so much faster. Every large business takes time to make decisions. They're going to make decisions on a monthly or quarterly or yearly or weekly basis. When you have a small, lean team, you guys can literally pivot as if you were a small speedboat as opposed to a large Titanic. If you are maneuvering in tough oceans, you can maneuver substantially quicker whenever there's times of disruption or change, or being able to pivot or trying to implement on something quicker at scale. When you have a lean team, it is so much easier to do that than having a mega business, because mega businesses need shit to go through other layers of complex systems, because they have management and mid-level management and higher level management. People are just not as incentivized to scale. I see a lot of these businesses are doing a million times better than me, but I would not want to end up with their business. If you're looking to take advice from someone, make sure you want to be where they are at in that particular field. One client of mine, I take his business advice so incredibly seriously up to a certain point. He has other parts of his life that I would never, ever in a million years want to be like. And so there's certain portions of people you would want to emulate. I want to be incredibly physically fit. I would not consider myself too fit right now. I'm trying to really learn the planche, the front lever, get a lot of complex calisthenics movements down. Watch a few guys on Instagram that are teaching you the progressions of how to perform a front lever, what muscles you need to grow. A lot of your lower back and glutes having the strongest core humanly imaginable. And then it also takes incredible amounts of technique. But still, even though you can know all these things, it is taking me 6+ months of doing this every single day. Literally, I'm doing handstands in our house every single day, trying to lean into the planche. And the planche is just doing it to where you're basically in a push-up position, but your legs are in the air. Your body's just like this. You're holding yourself with just your arm. A very, very challenging movement to hold within your body. Even though I have all the material and I know what to do, it still just takes time to do it. Even though I was already starting with a pretty strong physique, I've been working out since I was in 7th grade. It still doesn't matter, because to do hard, complex things, it just takes time. Probably going to take me another 6 months, even if I train every single day, until I can do a planche. And then what's going to happen, I'm going to want to do more complex movements that I can't even comprehend doing right now because they seem so wildly difficult. But the thing is, every time you level up, there's new problems that arise that you have not yet conquered. The advice that I would give now are really on the things that I'm currently thinking about and doing, which are not applicable to anybody starting out. Because I'm thinking about, well, if I'm looking to acquire a company, what would that look like structurally to increase the market value of my business? That is not applicable to anybody watching for the most part. It's fun because that's what I'm thinking about. And it's crazy how the business is growing to that extent and how we can take these massive higher leverage moves. But if I told myself that 3 years ago when I had a very small business, that was terrible advice, because the advice I needed to hear was, Josh, you need to have a systematized process throughout your business where it's more of a plug and play, where you can show very high quality results to as many people as possible without having to do the day-to-day work. You need to have SOPs to where every single person knows what they're doing, and KPIs to where every person knows what they should be striving toward. And then you need to have an onboarding system for clients, and you need to have a system for getting clients, as well as servicing those clients at the highest possible scale. Looking back 3 years, you need to figure out the legality aspect. You need to figure out the tax aspect, because you're going to get absolutely ass raped by people in the future if you don't have good contracts, if you have no contracts, if you are not thinking about your taxes. That was the advice that I needed to hear a few years ago, but now we've done that. Now the advice is different. And so for different stages of my life, I actually needed different advice. I still need to improve the systems. I still need to improve the foundation, but it's becoming a lot easier. What I really need right now is a better training system for onboarding employees so we can continue to have the highest caliber talent. The problems that occur are always different the more you level up, and just taking advice from anyone, it's probably not contextually going to make a ton of sense in the situation that you are in right now. Honestly, not that hard to figure it out. If you just ask yourself, honestly, what do you need to do? And what is the limiting constraint of your growth, whatever it is that you're going on?